It has been a tremendous zechus for us to have such a unique kehila, and a united kehila during this time period, where we are able to meet one another every single day and hear words of chizuk and hear from one another. But obviously our kehila is unique in it that we have our Rav, Rabbi Wein, who's been guiding me personally, but has been guiding our entire kehila from the safety of his daughter's home in New York in the Five Towns. And we wish the Rav good health and arichos yamim and strength, and that should continue to lead our kehila and the many different communities and rabbinical figures around the world that call our Rav up and ask him for guidance and for eitzah during this time period. And it's a big zchus for us to get a special Chol Hamoed shir now from the Rav. At the end, we're going to do some questions and answers, a few questions that came in from the kehila with the Rav's permission. And we're already starting to think about the schedule that's going to be after Pesach. It seems like we're going to be an online community for after Pesach as well. And I've been discussing it with Mark Zohar, and together with the Rav, we're going to try to build together an amazing schedule, a schedule that's going to bring us all together, a schedule of shiurim, a schedule of Torah learning, of inspiration, of growth, because we have now brought our mikdash, our mishkan, we brought it into our homes, and this is really the time, and it's a big zchus and a pleasure for us to have the Rav with us. So, Rabbi, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. It goes without saying what Rav Goldvicht has accomplished over this past month, and we are all certainly in his debt, and I appreciate it greatly. So, Moadim L'Simcha, everybody. On the Yontiv of Pesach and Chol Hamoed Pesach and Shabbos Chol Hamoed Pesach, we have perhaps the two most optimistic, cheerful, joyous portions of Tanakh that are read publicly. I refer naturally to our custom of reading Shir HaShirim, and also to the famous Haftorah of Yechezkel, which is the Haftorah for Shabbat Chol Hamoed Pesach, about the Atzomot HaYeveshot, the dry bones, and the resurrection of the Jewish people. And I think it's important to dwell on these two, especially in a time when it's not easy to feel optimistic and joyous. It seems that much of what we have accomplished over the past 50, 60, 70 years, personally and nationally, is now been canceled. It doesn't exist anymore. Here in the United States, for instance, the great economy doesn't exist. There are 17 million people applied last week for unemployment benefits. And the solution is to print money. Eventually, that solution has many problems to it. So everything that we built up, we see that in Pesach also. It says, Vayivnu orei misim leparo, as Pitom ves Ramses. The Jewish people built in Egypt tremendous cities, Pitom and Ramses. I don't think that we were the ones that built the pyramids, but there's no question that we built. And it all turned out to be negative. It turned out to be symbols of slavery and not of accomplishment. And when you hear the Torah recounted, that, in my opinion, the Torah recounts it ironically. Look what they built. It's reminiscent of the building of Migdal Bavel, the great Tower of Bavel. So that also was a tremendous accomplishment. People worked on it for years. The tallest building in the world was taller than the one in Dubai. In the end, the Lord mocked them. Heaven always is ironic. It takes what we feel to be our greatest accomplishments and somehow shows them to be deficient if that's all that we have to be proud of. And that's what Shlomo HaMelech said, Im Hashem lo yivne bayis, shov omlu bonov bo. If God is not in the house, if he doesn't build a house, if there's no higher purpose, if I just want to build the tallest building in the world, it's useless. It's an exercise in futility. So we have to be reminded of that many times. In fact, I would say that much of human history is a testimony to the fact that we are constantly reminded that what we held to be so impressive and such of great importance and value turns out to be very little. In the long run of things, it is not eternal, it is not lasting. It doesn't really do it for us. And so now in this period of time when we are confined to our homes and no one is building skyscrapers, so then we are building within ourselves. I think that all of us can testify to the fact that we probably thought more about our lives over the past few weeks than we have had the ability to do so for many years. Because what else is there to do? What else is there to think about? And therefore we come to the realization, Im Hashem lo yivne bayis, if we didn't have a purpose, Torah, the Jewish people, Israel, bettering the world, being a better person, the smallest things, that became the great things. We say that in Hallel, right? Even mo'asu abonim hoisol rosh pinah. The stone that we reject every day, it's the kleinikite, it's small things. Well, you know, I said hello to him, I didn't say hello to him, I was nice, I wasn't nice. I gave him exact change, I didn't give him exact change. Hoisol rosh pinah. Now that's the cornerstone of our lives. Those are the things that we remember. And memory is a strange thing because we not only remember the good things, we remember other things as well. I would think that this is a period akin to Aseres Yimei Tshuva, of self-introspection. Why did I say that? Why did I behave that way? Why did I say no? Why didn't I appreciate what I had? So that is part of the overall picture of what Pesach is, because it focuses us, it makes us realize that Pitom and Ramses will sink into the sands of history. but that Im Hashem lo yivne bayis, that will remain with us. So we read the book of Shir Hashirim. We all know Rabbi Akiva says that if all Kisvei HaKodesh are holy, Shir Hashirim is Kodshei Kodeshim, is a holy. Well, that's quite a statement that when you read the book, when you read the Megillah, on the surface, it's an erotic love poem between a man and a woman. So, I don't know, it's not nice to say, but when you're my age, you can say a lot of things. I think if our committee, so to speak, would choose today whether Shir Hashirim should be included in Kisvei HaKodesh, I don't know if it would get a majority vote. It's not nice. Graphic descriptions of love. And yet, Rabbi Akiva says it's Kodshei Kodeshim, it's the holiest of things. Because that teaches us a basic lesson. First of all, it's a lesson of optimism, of joy. You're here in this world, enjoy it. God gave you a beautiful world. Look at it. Appreciate it. He gave us such a beautiful country, which is such a variety of wonders. So, there are virtual tiyulim every day that I see on the internet. But we will agree that no virtual equals the fact that you can see a palm tree or a fig tree. So it's a symbol of joy. Human love is joy. It's a feeling of fulfillment. It's what the Lord implanted within us. In fact, the verb that is used throughout Tanakh to describe the acts of love is vayeda, to know, to appreciate it, to realize what God gave us. And therefore it becomes Kodesh Kodeshim, it becomes the Holy of Holies. Because by us there is nothing that is not holy. I often remarked when I taught in the yeshiva, that we're the only people in the world that make a blessing when you come out of the bathroom. The rest of the world hides it. I mean, the fanciest room in the house is the one that hides what its real purpose is. Because there's a sense of human weakness. There was a famous book called The Denial of Death, very cheerful book, by a Jewish psychoanalyst by the name of Becker. I think he was a Holocaust survivor. A very interesting book. I read it a number of times. And in the book, he describes how implanted within us is the nature of people, the human nature, the physical nature. And that's a constant reminder of who we are. And that's why we were created that way. And because of that, therefore, it is meant to decrease our hubris. So I'm dressed in a $1,000 suit and I'm sitting in a mahogany covered office and I'm doing great business, and all of a sudden, my stomach doesn't feel good. Or I have to leave. That's a reminder. You're not such a crack. A little less. I remember once, a long time ago, I was good friends with a very, very wealthy person in New York. the way to remain good friends with a very wealthy person is never ask him for anything. So I was a good friend, and he was making up trusts and wills and everything. And he needed a trustee. And he asked me if I would serve as a trustee. And the trust that I was a trustee on, I knew nothing about. But it included a very large office building in Manhattan that was worth, I don't know, $200-300 million, something like that. And after a year or 2 or 3 years, he decided that he was going to refinance this office building. So they drew up the mortgage papers, everything, but I'm the trustee, so I have to go sign it. So I come in, I remember it vividly. The office was on the lawyer's office that was making the refinancing agreement was on the 98th floor of the World Trade Center when it still existed. There's a lesson there too. And he came into this office. It was magnificent. I mean, the paneling, the carpeting, the aura, the ambience, with 100 little lawyers running around doing the bidding of the senior partners. And they're drawing up the papers. I'm sitting there, I just have to sign the paper. In the middle of all of this, one of the great things about New York is that the cockroaches are ubiquitous. They do not respect anything. So in the 98th floor of the World Trade Center, in this magnificent office, signing an $85 million mortgage, there's a cockroach that runs across the carpet. Well, the lawyer that was in charge was so embarrassed, he didn't know what to do. So he turned to me, he said, I'm sorry, I don't know how this happened, it's like he's responsible for it. So I said to him, can I ask you a philosophical question? He said, what? I said, do you think the cockroach knows it's on the 98th floor of the World Trade Center? And to me, that's a very good question. Because in God's world, this is not what impresses us. But the cockroach is not impressed. It's doing its thing. Shira Shirim is that we're doing our thing. We're being human beings, but we're being human beings in the Holy of Holies with a purpose. Because we're doing it in Hashem Lo Yivneh Bayis, that God is building our house. So therefore, everything that I do is holy. You know that construction, the guy that pours the cement, so he's not necessarily the world's biggest architect, but if he doesn't do his job right, the building won't stand. It's every little piece. That's what Pesach teaches us. Every little piece. And then we have this Haftorah, so that's a great source of optimism, Shira Shirim. Life will go on. Human beings are resilient. Whatever it is, it's Holy of Holies. And the Haftorah really speaks to us. The Novi Yechezkel is brought into this, the Rambam says it's a vision. It's a discussion in the Gemara as to whether or not this actually happened. There's Amandi Omar in the Gemara who says, Lo haya v'lo nivra, that there never was such a story, but that this is an imaginary vision that the Novi relates to us. I'm going to return to that in a minute. So what happens is a valley of dry bones. According to the Talmud, it's 30,000 corpses, skeletons. And the bones are scattered. You can't tell which belongs to which. And God asks the Navi, what do you see here? So the Navi answers, what do you mean, what do I see? I see it in a valley of dry bones. A bunch of skeletons. So the Lord says to him, are these bones ever going to live again? So the Navi is taken aback. So he says, Hashem, it's up to you, God. You can do whatever you want. I don't say, what am I going to do with the dry bones? So he hears the voice that says to him, prophesy. And all of a sudden, there arises a wind, and the bones begin to rearrange themselves so that now they become human skeletons, not just scattered bones. And then he hears the voice say to him further, now prophesy more, reach for greater things. So he does, and the wind comes from all four corners of the earth. And the bones take on flesh and sinew and muscle and skin. They take on human form, but they're dead. And then the third time he hears the voice that says, prophesy again, reach more. It's not enough. And he does, and again, the spirit, the wind, life itself is restored. And they all stand up. Chayil Gadol Bo, the great and mighty host. And the Navi says, well, what is this? And God says to him, these bones, that's the Jewish people. That's what the Jewish people are. I will open their graves. I will reorder their skeletons. I'll give them flesh and sinew and muscle, skin. I'll give them life. So that's the vision. So the Gemara says, what happened afterwards? The typical Jewish question. So now what? We took us out from Egypt, so we were free. So now what? Oh, now Tabdu es Elohim al. Now you're going to worship God. Oh, so now what? Oh, now you're going to go to Eretz Israel. So now what? You're going to build the base of English. So now what? Now you're going to be a light unto the nation. There's always so now what? Now what are you going to do? And one opinion in the Gemara is, Omdu al Ragleya, they stood on their feet. The Omru Shira, they recited the Hallel, and they all died again. They dropped dead again. That's it. One-time miracle, great, fine. We revived the dead, now they all died. So the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yehuda ben Bova. That can't be. Chas v'shalom, that you should say such a thing, that they dropped dead again. V'alo ani mi b'nei b'neiim. He said, that's what Mike Zayda. What are you talking about? They got up, they got married, they had children, they had grandchildren. Utfilin shel avi abba biyodi, and I have my Zayda's tefillin in my hand to prove it. That's the source, by the way, for the Jewish custom that grandfathers purchase tefillin for their grandsons on their bar mitzvah. I have thy tefillin. So God forbid, let's say that we drop dead. Over the last century, the Jewish people has been a valley of bones. It's not 30,000, it's millions and millions and millions. So, is there any hope? What good is it? And the Lord has revived us. He's opened up our graves. We've accomplished what we thought could never have been accomplished. And now we're tested again. All of our accomplishments are threatened to be turned into dust again. So it wasn't Rabbi ben Bova, it's Rabbi ben Pseira, I'm sorry. So, but we are the children of Rabbi ben Pseira. No, chas v'shalom, that we're going to let it fall. We're going to build it again. We'll build it better, stronger. And the proof is I have my Zayda's tefillin. It's with me. Always with me. I remember when I was bar mitzvah, so my father took my Zayda's tefillin, Rabbi Rubenstein's tefillin, and that's the tefillin that I wore till I was married. Then the tefillin were too old already, so we got a new pair of tefillin. But I always felt I had my Zayda's tefillin. As long as I had my Zayda's tefillin, I had my Zayda. I'm in shape. I know where I'm going. And I've been privileged over the years to buy tefillin for many of my grandsons. It's not a cheap matter anymore. But what a feeling. What a continuity. What an eternity. So that Haftorah of Pesach is the story of Pesach, right? It's we're slaves, Avodim Ayinu Lefar Mitzrayim, and if the Rebbeinu Shalom would have taken out, we'd still be slaves. In one way or another, we wouldn't be the Jewish people. And God took us out. And even if we weren't so happy to be taken out, but life impinges upon our desires. I think many of the excuses that people had, legitimate excuses, I don't mean this as a criticism, God forbid, but they didn't consider Aliyat Eretz Yisrael as being likely, wise, possible. When this is all over, those beliefs are going to waver. It's not what it was. It's never going to be again. It's a new world. The only constant of the new world is Hashem lo yivna b'ayis shovom lo bonav. God has to build the house. We have to help him. That's our task. And that's what Pesach is. So we build it through Shir Hashirim, through human behavior, with a sense of holiness in everything that we do, with a realization that there are no small things in life. And we build it in the belief that even what appears to be dead can be revived. And what we once thought could never be, will be, and it will be better and greater than it was before. So I want to wish you all a very, very wonderful Chag. Enjoy the last days of Pesach. And I hope, God willing, when all starts flying again, and when they close the quarantine, then I hope to see you all personally in good health and happiness and nachas. I see the shul has expanded. The generations were born when I wasn't there already. Great and good things can happen when other people are working for you. So my blessings and best wishes, and we'll hear bsuras tovos, yeshuos, and echomos, and be zochet to great and good things. Thank you all for listening, and Chag Sameach.
Thank you, Rabbi. With your permission, if we could also, a few questions were sent in.
Go ahead.
People have about this time period. We have close to 80 computers on, which means over 100 people on the line right now. Just before I ask the few questions, I just want to make an announcement that tomorrow morning we're going to be doing our shul meetup earlier in the morning at 9:30 in the morning. There was an idea to do a musical hallel the last day of Chol Hamoed. So we're going to be doing a musical hallel at 9:30 a.m. Israel time. So I'm sorry, Rabbi, about the change.
I'm doing the solo, don't worry.
We're going to be doing it live from Beit Shemesh with Hillel Zaka and his sons. He came for our Tu B'Shvat program, which was great. He's fascinating. So that's going to be 9:30 in the morning. We're going to give a few short words after that, and that's going to be our Erev Chag meetup, our Shiras Hayam. So that's going to be tomorrow, and we're going to send out a schedule after already for starting for next week on Sunday. We're going to have a weekly program. Yirtzeh Hashem, we'll have the Rav's Parsha Shir. We'll have Eli Shir. We'll try to get the Moed Katan back in check.
I'm going to try and do a Pirkei Avos Shir every week too.
And we'll even have a Pirkei Avos Shir. We're going to send the full schedule when we're able to fine tune it. We'll send it to everybody. Okay, so Rebbe, one of the questions that came in is people wanted to know, there have been plagues in history in the past. This is not the first plague. Obviously, it's the first pandemic of its size that everyone is dealing with the same thing at the same time. But how has the Jewish community dealt with plagues and pandemics in the past? The rabbis, how they've guided the community spiritually or physically? How should we be looking at this from what we know from the past about plagues and pandemics in the Jewish communities? Anti-Semitism that comes with it, that was part of a question that came up.
Well, I mean, in the bubonic plague in the 14th century, which destroyed 1/3 of the European population, the Jews were blamed for poisoning the wells. And there was a period of terrible pogroms. So then it was a case of the Jews denying. But it's interesting that it did not affect the Jewish community that much, or to the extent that it did the general community, because the Jewish community, because of halacha, had to practice certain hygienic procedures, washing hands, going to the mikveh, etc. So that somehow mitigated the spread of the plague. But in the Tshuvas in the 18th century, Kiv Eger talks about it, there were plagues. Mostly the plagues were cholera. And because of cholera, that came from bad water. So there were always instructions to somehow use wells, not to drink water indiscriminately from whatever source, etc. But again, most of the world was unaware of any of this. And the Jewish world tried to do what it could based on the science that existed at that time. Just as we're behaving now, according to the science that exists now. It could be 100 years from now, scientists will look back and say, well, you shouldn't have done this. There's a different way to do it, or a better way. But we can only go, of rose. You can only deal with what is, what the best scientific evidence that we have and follow it to the extent that we can, and God will mitigate the plague.
Amen. Okay, there's a question that came in also about, there's a lot of talk right now about it's Yemos HaMashiach. We could feel it. It's around Nisan time. And there have been times in Jewish history where it was a mesugel for Mashiach. There's been false Mashiachs in the past that have used times of tzara to say, oh, look, here is Mashiach. How should we be looking at the time period right now? Is it a time of Mashiach? Is it not? What should be our approach to this, the feeling that many of us might be feeling?
I'm a follower of Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, who says that it should not even be discussed, and that when it happens, it will happen. And over the long period of the Jewish history, unwarranted messianism has done us enormous damage. And so we have to temper, we want him to come, we expect him to come every day, but that's not the topic of public conversation. That's the opinion of the Rambam. No, it's not a popular opinion because people like, the mumbo jumbo better. But I think that that's the best policy.
Okay.
God will bring God, the Mashiach will come. Beito achisheno, will be zocher to it.
Amen. Okay, so what is the message during this time period for Jews here in Eretz Yisrael and also for Jews in America? I mean, obviously, God is talking to us.
The message is, in my opinion, as I told it to my grandchildren last night, the message is that we're going to have to God, there was 4 months ago, there are no challenges left for the Jewish people. We have our state, we rebuilt Torah, there are enormous yeshivas, there are women's seminaries, we have an economy, we have the best Air Force in the world. They don't have to do anything. There's no challenge left, so we just got to row your boat. It's very good. So now there's a challenge, big challenge. How are we going to build it? How are we going to build the world afterwards? How are we going to build Eretz Yisrael? How are we going to build the Medina afterwards? How are we going to build Torah afterwards? That's a challenge. People need challenges. You have to be challenged all the time, otherwise there's no growth. So that's what I think the message should be. When this is over, I'm challenged now, just as we were challenged 70 years ago, and just as we have been challenged over all of history. Okay, so let's try and do our best.
Okay, so this is already towards the closing of the questions. So therefore, what should we, now that we're challenged, what should we be mischazik in? Maybe for us living in Eretz Yisrael, what should we be mischazik in? And also the Jews, some of the people on the call here live in America or now find themselves in America. What should American Jewry or world Jewry be mischazik on during this challenge? And what should we here living in Israel, what should we be strengthening ourselves in during this time period, during this challenge?
Well, the challenge is to see the big picture and not just the little picture. Yeah, the little picture is the politics that go on every day. The pettiness, the newspaper, the media, that's the little picture, so that obscures the big picture. The challenge is, how are we going to build an equitable, prosperous, moral Torah society in Eretz Yisrael? That's the challenge. And each and every one of us can do our part by our own behavior. Not to make room for others, to be less turf conscious, it is a resetting of our values and our view of life. So somehow I will be more tolerant of my neighbor, even though he's a boor. Or I will not be so caught up in political idealism, so that I can only think that the other group is evil and banal and worthy of destruction, etc. It's small things, but that's the challenge. That's the challenge. And we have to think of ourselves as a whole. Klal Yisrael. Well, is it good for Klal Yisrael? It may be good for Rev Yisrael, but is it good for Klal Yisrael? So I don't think there's any magic formula here. We know everybody knows what's right and wrong.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what they should do. It's just easier not to do it, but everybody knows what to do. And we've been blessed. Our shul has been blessed that to an extraordinary way. We don't have many of the problems that unfortunately exist in the synagogues throughout the world. There's very little shul politics. The rabbis in our shul don't have a hard time. The balabatim are of superior quality. Everybody feels that, that they're part of an important venture. So we have to expand that and draw others into it. And again, it's all small things, but the small things are the big things. It's the great picture. And, listen, I have no idea what's going to be or how long this will last. I pray that it ends as soon as possible. But it will end. And when it ends, then we will start to build again. And we'll build better and stronger and build for generations so that our grandchildren's tefillin will be ours.
Amen. Amen. So
thank you for listening.
Rabbi, with that note, I would like to say in the name of the entire Kehila, special bracha to the Rav, Ki orech yamim ushanim yosifu lach, should be many more years in good health and happiness, together with the entire Kehila, together with the entire community. We look forward to seeing the Rav here in Eretz Yisrael. And maybe Rabbi could give the entire community a bracha now, as we wish the Rav a good yontif for the final days.
So, Chag Sameach, it's yontif. I want to tell you a story from my father. That's my bracha to you. My mother, Aleh Sholem, died Erev Pesach. I was in Chicago. I was in the road of Miami Beach. I was in Chicago. I thought she was getting better. She's supposed to come home. She passed away the night of Erev Pesach, B'dikas Chometz. The next morning, we had the funeral early, no espedim, burial, and I got 2 plane tickets. And my father and I flew to Miami Beach for the yontif. You can imagine that it was not easy. So that night at the Seder, but we got ready for the Seder, I said to my father, I said, Daddy, maybe you don't have to lead the Seder tonight, I'll do part, and my brother-in-law was there with us. He'll do part. You don't have to. It's too hard for you. So he said to me, he said, Beryl, what are you talking about? It's Yom Tov. It's Yom Tov. And he led the Seder because it was Yom Tov. So that to me was a great lesson in life. And I think that's our lesson. It's Yom Tov, right? Chag Sameach. The B'nai Shalom will help us all.
Amen. Amen. We give a bracha to the Rav. It should be a great Yontiv and should be bracha and atzlacha. Whoever is interested, we're going to be meeting tomorrow at 9:30 in the morning for a musical Hallel to get us ready for the Yontiv with the Simcha and the celebration. I'm unmuting everybody. If anybody wants to say good Yontiv to the Rav.
Okay, Chag Sameach, everybody. Great to see you. I must admit that all of you are better in person.
Good to you, Rabbi.
Costello, be well.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Cold too.
Chol too. Chag Sameach, Rabbi. Okay, Chag Sameach to
Chag
everybody.
Sameach. Toda Rabba.
Rabbis.
Bye, everybody.
Okay, bye everybody. We had over 80 people here, which was a great turnout, and we are looking forward to doing this again after this. Everybody tomorrow at 9:30 in the morning, musical Hallel led by Hillel Zach.
9:30.
Yes. Bye, Pessy.
Backyard.
Oh, serious.
Thank you very much.
Go down the hill, go across the street, and there's your friend that has a backyard there and the thing. You know who the hell we're talking about?
Zadie's here.
Different Zadie.
Is Zadie here?
I don't think Zadie's here, but there are a lot of Zadies.
Breast keeper?
It's Zadie with other kids. This is the sleeping keeper. The sleeping keeper. We're wearing our pajamas here all day. Bye, everybody. We'll see everybody tomorrow, 9:30 in the morning. Thank you, Mrs. Herman, for suggesting this idea. Great idea. 9:30 tomorrow morning. We have a musical. Oh, we have another superstar here. Hey, bye-bye to everybody. Bye-bye, everybody.
Yes.
Yes, two children.
Bye-bye, Zadie, Booby.
Bye.